citizens. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where in the world you are tapping in from. You got to keep in mind that Keep It P podcast is a global show. And today, on this episode of Breaking News, we have a special report. At least 10 dead, 35 injured in New Orleans after driver intentionally drives in the crowd on Bourbon Street. We'll be discussing that and more when we return from these brief messages. Welcome back.
RTA buses, garbage trucks that are being mobilized now to make sure that any other areas are protected as well.
And I want to bring in our ABC News contributor, former NYPD Chief of Detectives, Robert Boyce, no stranger to investigations like this or to trying to secure an area for New Year's Eve, having worked obviously in New York City for quite some time. Robert, what's your reaction to the fact that this attack was even able to happen and to where the investigation stands now?
Sure. So right now, as Rich said before, we have an identified perpetrator. We need to know if he's a lone actor, a lone wolf actor, or is he part of a bigger thing? That's really important. We have a couple of things going on today. We have the Sugar Bowl, we have the Peach Bowl and Rose Bowl. All these gatherings here to watch football games. That's a nationwide threat right now. Going back to shutting down streets and perimeters, using sand trucks, whatever you have available. If those bollards were removed for any reason or inoperable, you could put cement dividers there, cement lines, trucks, slabs, whatever you can, to prevent people from coming into that area. Remember, there was no traffic on Bourbon Street. It was just too many people, so you shut it down. Therefore, you have to create a perimeter that's impenetrable by any kind of vehicle-borne attack. And so that'll be the after-action report when going forward here. And why it wasn't done. It's just because these protocols are across the nation. We all do this in urban environments to ensure civilian safety. So that's all part of it as well.
And Jason, I want to talk more about those events because this is a busy time in New Orleans. Not only obviously is New Year's Eve huge there, you have the Sugar Bowl there tonight, the Super Bowl coming up next month. How is the city going about guaranteeing safety at those events if it couldn't prevent a pickup truck on Bourbon Street on New Year's morning?
You know, I've been having some conversations with city leaders about whether or not the game goes forward, and that determination still has to be made, whether that will happen today or whether it will be pushed back. This was clearly an act of terror, and I think...
All right. It clicked us out, but there's 35 injured and dead.
Who are hosting large events, bowl games and the like, to take notice of what we're dealing with right now in this very volatile scene, to make sure that they are putting everything in place that needs to be in place to protect large crowds.
How confident are you that you can either get that together in time for the Sugar Bowl tonight, or at the very least in time for the Super Bowl next month?
Are we still talking about sports while people die?
Everybody from on the national, state, and local level has been in a room since early this morning talking about this open and fluid investigation, about the events that are coming up later on today or this evening potentially, and the events that are coming up later on in the year. New Orleans has been punching above its weight for a very long time, hosting large events. We host more large events than any other city our size. And you can rest assured that there's a lot of tough questions being asked in these rooms that I'm in right now. One, determining what happened here and determining who's involved here, and determining what other steps need to be taken.
Terrorist attack.
He had a flag on the back of his truck.
And I want to bring in our chief investigative correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, I understand you have some new info on the suspect now?
I do, and I want to be very precise, Diane. I'm just going to read this new statement from the FBI. This is the most update and detailed information we have from an official source. It says, quote, today at approximately 3:15 a.m., an individual drove a pickup truck into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing at least 10 and injuring dozens of others. After hitting the crowd, he exited the vehicle and fired upon local law enforcement. Law enforcement returned fire and the suspect was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 law enforcement officials were injured and transported to the hospital. Now we have new information on the suspect. The suspect has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsud Din Jabbar, a U.S. citizen from Texas. He was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to have been rented, and we are working to confirm how the subject came in possession of the vehicle.
From Toro.
Now, this is a key new detail. An ISIS flag was located in the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the suspect's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations. It also goes on to talk about weapons and a potential ID located inside the subject's vehicle as well. So this is the latest information the FBI has on the situation. They're continuing, as they say, to look at these devices to see if they're viable. They make it clear again that the FBI is the lead investigation, but clearly this new information identifying the suspect, giving his age as 42, a U.S. citizen from the state of Texas, and they also believe that he had an ISIS flag in the vehicle, which raises all kinds of concerns about was he inspired by the organization online or somehow directly connected to that particular terrorism organization.
And let's bring that question to ABC News contributor, former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Brad, how do you go about figuring that part out now? If this guy, assuming that flag signifies what we think it does, right? How do you figure out if this is just someone who was kind of a fan of ISIS and inspired by them, or someone officially working with the organization?
So you can start with history, and history tells us that these tend to be lone actors, yes, inspired by ISIS, but online, but acting alone. So we'll see if he fits that. Whether he fits it or not, Diane, you still have to figure out who helped him directly or indirectly. For example, did he know how to build IEDs? Probably not. Did ISIS teach him through videos that you can go online to their sites and actually learn how to build IEDs? All of that becomes important, because is there maybe not there with him at the scene, but who facilitated him to end up doing what he did this morning? So that's going to be, in my view, the real key is the other players may be indirect, because that also can take you to other potential leads. Not necessarily maybe in reference to him, but maybe identifying other people that are in the process of being radicalized because they're dealing with the same recruiter or a person in ISIS that spends his or her day trying to talk people into doing what happened this morning.
And Aaron, how much more do we know about the logistics here? How he got that car, how he got the gun, how he got these devices, and so on?
Authorities are working to determine all of that, but it appears the truck was rented from through an app, the Turo app, which is a car-sharing app in Texas, and the authorities have been in touch with the person who rented the suspect the vehicle. We also were able to reach that person's family. They're obviously quite distraught that this rented truck was involved in something like this. The authorities are scheduled to brief about, 40 minutes from now, Diane. They may have more to say about all of these things if they were able to trace the firearm, if they were able to get more information from the vehicle. But that vehicle was initially a trove of information. They had the license plate. They were able to trace right away who they were looking at. They also had, as you see in the photo there, the pole sticking out from the back of the cab and back of the flatbed part
where the,
of the truck,
ISIS flag was
what
flying.
the FBI now confirms was an ISIS flag. They knew right away what this appeared to be.
So, Robert, walk us through what happens now when you have a scene like this. A three-pronged attack here. First, obviously, ramming that crowd with the truck, then opening fire, then investigators finding these devices in and around the scene. How do you go about now piecing this together when you're working on the ground?
So, Diane, eerily similar to the St. Paul attack in New York City in 2017. We saw the secondary weapons involved both times. We saw the flags within the car both times. And we don't know if he's radicalized. A U.S. citizen, did he get radicalized online or did he go to the camps? Because we have another individual, Conor Rahimi, who was from New Jersey, a U.S. citizen, went to camps to get radicalized and created a terrorist attack in September of 2016. So that's what they have to look at right now. Who was he talking to? Who did he speak with? Is there anybody else here involved that we should know about immediately? And therein lies the thread right now. The crime scene is the crime scene. It's closed-ended. The perpetrator's dead. So now we have to look at everybody he's attached to in his life, where he became radicalized, and what teachings was he looking at. And anybody he could have been talking to, self-radicalized with. That's important.
And earlier I spoke to eyewitness Jimmy Cawthorn, who was there on Bourbon Street when the attack unfolded. Here's his account of what he saw this morning. Jimmy, I know this is really difficult to talk about, so we thank you for sharing your story with us. Can you tell me how this all started and what you saw?
Just a regular night. A friend of mine had never experienced New Year's on Bourbon, so I decided to take him. I was the designated driver, so I was sober, remember everything. Everything was fairly normal for a New Year's in New Orleans. We were heading back towards Canal when it looked like just a large commotion or something was going on up there. We weren't really wanting to fight through that. We just figured it was just some nonsense. So we ducked off into a nightclub, and within 2 minutes of being in there, 4 or 5 frantic females run in, duck under tables, get out from under the tables, run some more. So figuring New Orleans for New Orleans, we thought it was a shooting or something going on that was going to follow into this club. We ran upstairs to the balcony, knowing there was a balcony up there and it would be our better spot. And once we got out there, what we seen wasn't anything I wish anyone else to see. Just a melee of movie prop looking bodies mangled for both directions. The beginning, we were closest to Iberville, so pretty much right where it started. That's what I would think is its worst, because those people had no heads up. And the footage you're showing there, that is some of the footage that we did not want to share on Facebook. But that is a mother. She had a wedding ring on her finger. Just the body's positioning, terrible. And the gentleman down there.
Oh, that was a witness that was speaking.
Easy 6, instantly visibly deceased, just based on body position and blood and more graphic details.
You could tell he shook
And
up.
they wouldn't let us. I mean, it was minutes, several minutes after witnessing this. They wouldn't let us outside. And
Last name Muhammad
in
rented a
CPR,
vehicle from Toro,
response, and all of that.
had
due to the
bombs
nature
in
of
the
my
car,
job, and
ISIS flag.
they wouldn't let anyone go help. And I understand. And also at that time, you had the green military-style officers on foot, probably 10 of them running down Bourbon towards the direction the truck went with M16s. They basically kept us where we were for about an hour and a half or so while they secured the scene. And yeah, we were just left in there with our thoughts and visions.
Jimmy, you say that after you went up, you saw police following this truck on foot with their guns out. Can you talk to me about what you saw
on the
from
scene.
that
He was
point?
on the scene.
Those green officers there, several like them, I can't say if it's those exact ones, but at least 10 of those were coming from Canal on foot, M16s, ready position, down Bourbon, but the truck was completely out of sight.
And you said you initially thought it might be a drunk driver. What's your reaction now to hearing law enforcement say this not only was an intentional act, but they're investigating it as an act of terror?
Well, watching my local news and hearing that they've already detonated a couple of IEDs, I feel a lot more lucky than I did 6 hours ago, because this guy at any point could have threw those out the window. He could have shot us at us. I mean, it's hard to contemplate all the what ifs when all you see are these bodies. And you can't imagine someone would want to do this on purpose. I mean, all these people were somebody's special people. And this morning, they're not going to be there.
And again, that was witness Jimmy Cothran, who was on Bourbon Street when the attack happened. That's his account of what he saw. And I want to bring in Congressman Troy Carter of Louisiana's 2nd Congressional District. Congressman Carter, thank you for joining us. So many questions now, including part of what Jimmy told me earlier also was that the normal steel, he called them barricades, that are normally up during an event like this, he says weren't up. Another eyewitness who was there told me the same thing. He used the word bollards, but said that the bollards that are normally up were not, that he didn't see any kind of barricade there. Can you talk to me about that and what your reaction is to this attack and what you're hearing about it so far?
Well, obviously, the attack was a horrific act of terrorism, of cowardice, of someone who chose to take a number of lives. And we are employing every single resource from the federal government, from Homeland Security, from FBI, state police, local authorities in the area, NOPD and sheriffs in surrounding areas, to make sure that we're securing the area, bringing resources to bear to identify if there were additional actors and to bring them to justice. It's an ongoing investigation, so I'm limited on how much I can share, but I will tell you this, that as it relates to those bollards, we're still trying to determine what was the case. It appears that the bollards may not have been in fully operation mode, but there was a police vehicle that was there to deter any vehicles from getting onto Bourbon Street. My understanding is that they may have gone around the police vehicle and gone through the sidewalk, and that's how they gained entry. That information is still being gathered. I was on the city council many years ago when we had these security bollards to do just that, to protect the community from ongoing traffic during high trafficked areas like the Super Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Mardi Gras, Essence Festival, New Year's Eve, or any other time when we have literally thousands of people on Bourbon Street. I have been in communication with Secretary Mayorkas, with the FBI, with the White House, with the Chief of Police, the Superintendent of State Police, the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, and others. There's a lot of questions that are still being answered. The public needs to know this, that every possible resource from the federal government on down is being used to secure the area, secure our community, and to bring these villains, if they're plural, because we know that the suspect was taken down by law enforcement. We are determining if there are others that may have been a part of this, and using every resource we can. Now we need the public to step back and allow the law enforcement to do their job. This is not a time to sightsee. This is not a time to come around to look and see. If you don't have any reason to be in or around the French Quarter, please, please stay in your hotel rooms, stay away, stay home, do safety checks on the rest of your relatives and friends, and let law enforcement do what they do. Louisiana and New Orleans is no stranger to high-profile events. We've had multiple Super Bowls. We have Sugar Bowl every year. We have Mardi Gras every year. We have Jazz Festival, and we know how to control these crowds. Of course, acts of terrorism
Obviously
is a
not.
different issue. The FBI is on the ground, and they are in charge of this investigation and doing everything possible to secure the area and secure our residents and our visitors alike.
And Congressman, we now have the suspect's name from law enforcement. Anything more you can tell us about him?
110
And any
people
updates on the
dead,
death toll?
35 injured.
It looks like
ISIS
the death toll is at 15.
is involved. Terrorist
with
attack.
25 that are injured are in local hospitals now. Some have been released with broken arms and broken bones. We have 2 police officers that are in that mix one was struck by a firearm and other was apparently pinned by the vehicle and may have a broken shoulder. No fatalities among law enforcement. Unfortunately, we appear to have lost some 15 individuals. And our hearts and prayers go out to the family members and survivors of those individuals. Obviously, we aren't releasing any names at this time. The individual that was taken down appears to be someone that came in to Louisiana via a rented vehicle. And we have that individual's name, as you mentioned, and we are expeditiously investigating his social media, investigating any leave-behinds in the way of manifestos or any clues that may have been left as to who
Like the
else may
ISIS
have been a
flag?
part of this. And again, as I stated earlier, every resource will be used to identify them and bring them to justice. We will not in any way cower to or bow down to terrorist acts. We're Americans and this is America, and we will fight to protect all of our people.
And Congressman, you mentioned that New Orleans has been home to many events before, including the Super Bowl. The city's getting ready to host the Super Bowl again in February. What are you hearing in terms of the Sugar Bowl, though? Because there have been many conversations saying that, well, some at least saying that it should not go forward today.
Well, listen, number one is public safety, bar none. Number one is public safety. Every measure will be taken in that accord. Listen, this is not our first rodeo. We have a very strong history of being able to protect and manage these high-profile events. However, there are a lot of moving parts in this case. There are a lot of investigations that are going on. And while no decision has been made if the game will be played tonight or not, you can rest assured that we are doing everything in our power to make sure that we have the safest event for our visitors and our citizens. If, in fact, the game goes on, it is because we are secure in the fact that we have arrested this situation and can provide top-notch security to all of our citizens. New Orleans has done it consistently. We are a convention town, and we have the expertise with our local and federal partners to protect its citizens. Right now, we are securing everything to make sure that we have left no stone unturned as it relates to keeping the public safe.
And Congressman, do you feel that same level?
Talk about focused on the money train and not on the human life. Why are we talking about sports right now? Who cares?
As they have for many, many years, feel safe and secure and know that every resource that's available anywhere else in our country will be available in the city of New Orleans to make sure that the Super Bowl and tonight, the Sugar Bowl, goes on with the utmost level of safety and security.
All right, Congressman Troy Carter of Louisiana, we appreciate your time today, Congressman. Thank you. And Aaron, in terms of the Sugar Bowl, I know this has been up in the air all day. Any more on that?
Well, the city of New Orleans has not confirmed, but we are starting to hear the possibility that the Sugar Bowl will be postponed, not outright canceled, but postponed. We're still waiting for
what a human
official
thing
word
to do.
from the city and from the organizers. But we know law enforcement is still, as we speak, searching the nearby French Quarter for explosive devices potentially, and law enforcement is quite distracted. So as the congressman reflects, the need for public safety appears to take precedence over college football at the moment.
I want to bring in Pierre Thomas because Pierre, we heard Congressman Troy Carter there saying to the public, if you have no need to be in the French Quarter, please stay out of the way, let law enforcement do their job. But law enforcement is also asking for the public's help. please stay out of the way, let law enforcement do their job. But law enforcement is also asking for the public's help if they do have any information that could be
This is all
helpful. Can you talk
live,
a little
by
bit
the
more
way.
about that angle and what people who were there last night or maybe know someone who was could do right now to help?
The death toll has went from 10 to at least 15. So it's been updated. 5 more of the injured, of the over 35 injured, have died. So now the total is from 10 to 15 people have died, and there may be more casualties to come.
Reach out to a digital tip line that they've set up, and it's at www.fbi.gov/Bourbon Street attack. And they're also asking people to call in to 1-800-CALL-FBI. The other thing I want to point out, Diane, is in this moment, just to give you a sense of how dangerous the situation remains, they are meticulously going through the French Quarter because the FBI in their statements did point out
There could be
that
still more
other
bombs.
potential IEDs were located in the French Quarter. So beyond the weapons and the IED, potential IED found
Right,
in
so
the
there's
vehicle,
more
they did
bombs,
in fact
perhaps.
find other potential IEDs in the French Quarter. So noting that they found some already, clearly there's an urgent effort to see if there's anything else that they have not yet uncovered. So that crime scene is still very active and potentially dangerous.
And Rich, we heard the term grid search before for how they're going about trying to ensure that they've found all the explosive and potential explosive devices. Talk to me about that process. How meticulous is it? How do you do it? And how careful does law enforcement have to be here that they are sure?
So there's still bombs. They haven't located all the bombs. They have found other bombs. They found more bombs. They found more bombs. So be careful if you're in the French Quarter, if you're on Bourbon, there could be potentially more bombs that they haven't found. They're currently doing a grid search to try to locate all of the IUDs, bombs. So they're asking that you stay in the house because ISIS has done an attack. It was an ISIS flag. The suspect's name is Shad Din Jabbar. They're trying to say he was a U.S. Army veteran. See, you give all these people training, right? So you let, this comes from immigration, basically, right? You let all these people over here. You invite everyone to come on over to the United States and they hate your guts. You invite them to come over all while you're worried about black people and all they're doing all the crime. Meanwhile, you're letting all the immigrants in the country to attack us that don't like us from China. I don't have nothing against these people. I'm saying that. But I'm saying you can't do in their country what they can do here. Right? You can't go over to China and buy land in China. You can't become an owner of their land. You can't do that. But they come over here and buy up all the land. Right? You can be possibly an ISIS member, right? That can come and infiltrate the army. You can infiltrate the medical system. You can infiltrate police, being a police officer, you can come and infiltrate all that. Meanwhile, while you hate us, and like 42-year-old Shamsud Din Jabbar, a U.S. Army veteran, right? He rents a truck and he kills over 15 people. He has the ISIS flag in the back. He's flying it. He's wearing body armor. He has plenty of extra firearms. He has IEDs. Right? He skated all the ways. Oh, he from Humble, Texas. He just from Humble, Texas. He's a good old boy from Texas. Look, he went in the army too. He just a regular old good old boy. Just a good old boy. Never meaning no harm, right? But this is who you put all your faith and trust in, is all these busters that come from other countries. All the meanwhile, you want to look down on the black people, right? We not doing these terrorist attacks. But everybody don't want to focus on who we should be focusing on, which are these illegal immigrants that come over. And you're saying he wasn't illegal. Okay. Why don't we do extra checks on them? You can't go over to China and be in their army. You can't do it. You can't do it. Go over to some of these other countries that it's in and see all the hoops you got to jump it through. Here, you just got to jump a fence. Jump a fence, go under the fence, throw your baby over the fence, wade a little water, wade in the water, right? And then you come right over here, and then you assume the life average American, and you assimilate, pretending to assimilate. Hey, John, how's it going, John? Why can't them blacks be more like Jabbar and them? Right? Why can't them blacks be like more Rodriguez? You mean like the immigrant just burnt the woman on the subway? Burnt her to death? Fan the flames? We should be more like that? Is that what you're talking about? Because I'm trying to figure why everyone's focus isn't on this immigration problem that we have. Why aren't we focused on that? Huh? Why aren't we focused? Why we're letting Jabbar come through with his ISIS flag? Why are we letting Jabbar come through with his ISIS flag? We're not worried about immigration over here. We're not worried about the borders. No, we're not worried about the borders. We're not worried about double agents. No. Every other country's worried about spies and being infiltrated, but no, not in the U.S. We don't care about them coming over and weaving themselves into our fabric. We don't care about that. No. Definitely. Thanks for tapping in, Dr. K. Muhammad. Yes, pray everyone affected. We know what type of city New Orleans is, right? Huh? Let's not pretend like we don't know what type of city New Orleans is. Full of FBAs. We don't know that. Because why did he target? You could have targeted New York, right? Times Square. Let's ask the question of why the barricades weren't up. Huh? Why weren't the road barricades up? Any other event, you got road barricades up. But somehow, for some reason, on New Year's Eve in New Orleans, we don't have no barricades up. I wonder why. What's the problem? What really happened? Who are really the targets? Also, an update, there's no longer 10 confirmed dead. It is at least 15 people have lost their lives to Jabbar. Jabbar, the ISIS member that y'all let come over here, assimilate, you let him come over here, infiltrate, all while he has nothing but hate. All while you're not paying attention to Jabbar. You're not paying attention to Mr. ISIS. You watching what black people are doing. And we're the problem, and your focus is on us. Meanwhile, terrorist attacks. On who? In what areas? In what neighborhoods? I wonder. New Orleans. What comes to mind when you think of New Orleans and the people that live there? Why'd he pick there? Come on, hello, McFlizzle, not trying to tell you what to think, trying to show you how to think. That's why we break down the articles the way that we do here on the Keep It P podcast, where we take news situations and everyday occurrences, and we show how one could or could not be keeping it P. And I am your host, TZ Von Savage in the place to be. Let's tap back in.
2023 attack in Israel, that we're in this heightened threat environment, perhaps the most dangerous threat environment since 9/11. And I recently had a conversation with a senior law enforcement official, very senior law enforcement official. And this person expressed great concern that in between administrations, as you transition from one administration to the next, that potential bad actors would view this as a vulnerable period of time. And it's just very sad to say that this person's thoughts and concerns we've seen play out over the last few hours.
And don't be surprised if this is the pump you up that Israel needs, right, to go ahead and bust a move. I'm not involved. Go ahead and handle your business, Israel and Palestine. If you are black, FBA, mind your business. They ain't jump all on you to your rescue when you get shot dead in the street. They ain't there for you. So let them use their rocks and they boulders and fit out. That's their business. Mind your business. I'm just telling you, pay attention. Is this the green light that they needed?
Based on that. Now, clearly, you prioritize based on safety to start with. In other words, are they getting any information that would suggest this guy is associated to other people that might be planning a version of the same thing? You're going to act on that as quickly as you can. And so that's what drives the priority. But also information can be difficult to follow up on if you wait too long. People leave. People decide not to talk to you. They destroy documents. They wipe out their social media sites, whatever it might be. So that's sort of the key, and that's how you prioritize.
So there's going to be wipeouts
Richard,
of social medias and
the public's help,
and
also people who knew this suspect. How much does even small pieces of information help in trying to piece together things like how he was radicalized and what motivated him to do this?
Secret agent, perhaps?
Anything that you know about this individual, if you know something about it, is important to law enforcement. It's going to build that picture of who this person is. It's going to possibly indicate why he was radicalized. It may indicate how he was radicalized. It may indicate that there were other people who were being radicalized with him. And that's
so he might not be alone,
anything
right?
At this point, because we want to know if this is
because who helped him hide all the bombs,
or if this is something where he was lone inspired by ISIS. We're really not sure at this point as to why he did it or if he did it with anyone. But every little piece is going to help. You're building, you're building a puzzle with 15,000 pieces. And each piece, while by itself may not indicate anything, when you put it all together, you're going to have that picture. So if, as NYPD has said, as the FBI has said, if you see something or if you know something, you should let law enforcement know, because it could be that one little piece that helps expose more of the picture. And
Robert, in terms of the investigators on the ground now, what goes into this stage of the operation? Trying to, for example, secure the area and make sure there are no explosive devices.
As someone said earlier, that people drop bags and they run. That's understandable. They have to be rendered safe at that point. So it's an arduous test. Going on operationally, before the FBI released his name, I will guarantee you they breached his residence wherever he lives and have secured that residence and is going through his computers right now. So that's where we are. Probably this happened earlier this morning, because these things happen very fast with a lot of resources poured into this thing. So that data is all being examined to see if this was a lone wolf, and that's the big issue, or was it a series of other people involved as well? And can we expect more violence? So that's what you're looking at right now, that this location on Bourbon Street will be down for a couple of days, to be perfectly honest with you. You have to look at every little aspect of the thing and see where he was. Did he stay in the city that night? Did he speak with anybody? His phone? All those things are being processed right now. Where was he? Did he drive into the city today? Or did he stay in the outskirts or just come right in for this event. Those things, the timeline is important to develop, and it's being done right now. And I guarantee you a large part of that timeline has already been determined.
And Aaron, it looks like they're already trying to look into those aspects of the suspect here.
It does. We are getting some reports that there are authorities at a location nearby that may be associated with the suspect, but as Chief Boyce rightly points out, they will be running down any known location, including his hometown, any known family members. They're going to look online, any kind of social media profile. But already that work is underway as they work to determine a motive. Look, they had a pretty good indication from the ISIS flag that the FBI says was flying on the back of the truck that this was an act of terrorism and that the suspect may have taken some inspiration from ISIS. Now they'd like to flesh that out a little more.
And I want to bring in Council Member Oliver Thomas from the City Council there, part of this parish. He's also the chair of the Criminal Justice Division. Councilman, thank you for joining us. First, just your reaction, how you found out about this attack and your reaction when you did.
Well, I was coming from a family celebration. You know, here in New Orleans, we celebrate New Year's also. It's not just about the Sugar Bowl or the game or the tourist event of the national football game. So I was at a family event. I had lost my mom a little over a year ago, and we were celebrating lost ones and loved ones in our family. And my mom's birthday was just last month around Thanksgiving. So we went from there, uplifting the memories of our loved ones, celebrating, bringing in the new year, to trying to get what we thought was some sleep, to getting a message about people being taken to the emergency room. And I went to the emergency room, about 6 o'clock, 6:15, and spent 3 or 4 hours there with the victims, family members, and the medical professionals who are, man, we're not giving them enough credit at University Hospital and the hospitals in this community, many who came back to work, as well as I got a chance to talk to the family members and the two New Orleans police officers who were there having their wounds and their injuries taken care of.
Councilman, what are they telling you in terms of what they saw happen at around 3 a.m. this morning?
Yeah, great question. There was an individual who actually went around the barricades, went around police officers, and was intent on harm and destruction, taking people's lives and causing as much damage as humanly possible. So I don't know what could have been done with someone who their mission was to kill, harm, and cause a level of destruction probably beyond. One of the big discussions at the hospital was the two officers who were there having their injuries taken care of. Had they not, with the other two who weren't injured, had they not neutralized or stopped this perpetrator, this evil perpetrator, thousands more people could have been killed or hurt. So they were heroic in what they did and risking their lives to stop.
That there was no significant barrier up, that they didn't see the normal bollards or the steel barriers that they expect to see. A lot of questions are being raised at just simply how a pickup
Why
truck
no
made it onto
barrier?
Bourbon Street on a night like New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. What's your response to that, and what are you pushing for now?
Exactly.
Well, my response is the response that the police chief gave when she
Why
said that
wasn't it
she'll
set up?
address it again. This person drove around the barricades on the sidewalk into the crowd. Bollards, Godzilla or King Kong wouldn't have stopped that. So we can second guess
Stop it.
a lot of different things, but law enforcement agencies all over the country right now that are hosting events are meeting now to talk about how do we stop, neutralize, mitigate, or prevent these kinds of events.
It don't happen at the
Bourbon
Super
Street
Bowl.
is our street. It's one of the most iconic streets in the world.
You wouldn't
And
have let
though
it
New
happen
Orleans
at the
is an
Sugar
international
Bowl.
tourist site, this was really an attack on our freedom, just like 9/11 was. This was an attack on our way of life. And we're not only resilient here, we're going to continue to fight to make sure that maybe we can't prevent events like this, but to make sure that the public is as safe as possible. Look, let's not forget, there are many people who are questioning New Orleans law enforcement and security, but we train other people around the world on security and hosting events. We do Jazz Fest, Sugar Bowl, NCAA, Mardi Gras, French Quarter Fest, 900,000 people, Essence Fest, Bayou Classic. So, our officers were prepared, but how do you prepare for someone who's not only prepared, but hell-bent on taking lives and causing destruction? I'm going to let the law enforcement officials talk about what could have been, should have been, and how do we mitigate it moving forward. My concern now is for the confirmed victims, their families who've lost their lives, and the officers and the people who are recovering now.
All right, Councilmember Oliver Thomas, we appreciate your time today, sir. Thank you. And I want to go to ESPN reporter Laura Rutledge, who's been speaking to the teams. The Sugar Bowl has now been postponed. Laura, what are you hearing from the teams and the reaction to this game being moved?
Breaking news,
certainly
Sugar
a football
Bowl
game pales in
postponed.
comparison to the importance of the tragedy that we're talking about here. But it is an element of this conversation as we look to see what the next steps will be. And in speaking with Georgia team officials throughout the day, they have been waiting to gather more information. But while that's been going on, they have a shelter in place at their team hotel. They're on lockdown. Nobody is leaving. Nobody's coming in. They're making sure everyone is as safe as possible. And here in the stadium, they just opened it back up, the Superdome, recently, so we were able to get back into the stadium, but they had been sweeping it once again with dogs who can detect explosives. They had done that a couple days ago, and they felt the stadium was secure. They did it again just to make sure, but of course, taking every precaution possible. Georgia telling me they'll wait and see as they find out what's going to happen with this game going forward, but of course, they are paying attention to the victims that have dealt with this tragedy. And there is one Georgia student who is injured, was in critical condition. He is receiving medical treatment. They are keeping an eye on him as well, but we'll continue to gather information here.
Sugar Bowl, breaking news, Sugar Bowl has been postponed. At least 15 dead, updated from the 10 dead previously reported.
Well, certainly that's an
15 dead. It's been up.
It's an aspect of this, right? And New Orleans is a city that has hosted many big events, as you were just talking about. They're well prepared for that. There's been an influx of law enforcement here in the FBI.
If they're well
They've been
prepared,
meeting
then
with
what's
college
the
football
problem?
playoff officials as well as Sugar Bowl officials.
If they're so well prepared, then what was the problem? Why was there no barricades up? Why was there no guards up? If they're so prepared, imagine this happening at the ball drop. I don't think so.
With this, that I imagine New Orleans will do everything possible to ensure that the Super Bowl is in good condition going forward.
I bet.
All right, Laura Rutledge there on the field at the Sugar Bowl, a game which was supposed to be tonight, now postponed. Laura, thank you. And Senator Josh Hawley is now calling for public hearings with the Department of Homeland Security and FBI Director Christopher Wray over this attack in New Orleans. Our Elizabeth Schulze is at the White House. Elizabeth, what can you tell us about that?
You know, Diane, lawmakers from both sides of the political aisle are condemning this as a horrific attack, but we are starting to see more politics trickle into these statements. You heard Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, say that he is asking the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and the FBI Director Christopher Wray to publicly testify on exactly how this could have happened. And he wants those public hearings, Diane, to happen in the next 3 weeks before President Biden leaves office. Of course, inauguration set for January 20th. President Biden, for his part, says he has been updated on this all throughout the day. He did say he expects to be able to say more later today. We're still waiting for an update. He is at Camp David right now. But we did just get a statement in from Vice President Harris, who confirms, as we know, that the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism. She says any attack on our communities is reprehensible, Diane.
And again, for anyone just joining us, we are just getting the latest on this attack in New Orleans. It happened around a little past 3 a.m. As people were crowding the streets on Bourbon Street celebrating New Year's. Police say a white pickup truck drove onto Bourbon Street, ramming a crowd, killing 10 people. They say the driver then got out of the vehicle and opened fire, injuring 2 officers before the suspect was shot and killed. And police are now investigating as well devices that were found in and around the scene. as well as potential ties between that suspect and ISIS. Again, a lot of questions still left to be answered, and the investigation still very much underway. I want to bring in our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. Aaron, to reset a little bit, just walk us through the timeline of what happened here and the latest of what investigators have uncovered.
It was just after 3 a.m. local time. There were still crowds of people on Bourbon Street celebrating the new year when a white Ford pickup truck turned off of Canal Street, appears to have gone around a police car that was blocking the street up onto the sidewalk, and then sped down Bourbon Street, plowing into the crowd of people, killing now 15 people, according to the local district attorney, and injuring another 24 at least. The authorities say that as soon as that person exited the vehicle, he began firing at responding police officers. In fact, they had been responding to calls of shots fired, and 2 officers were struck by gunfire. They were taken to area hospitals in stable condition. Once the police shot and killed the suspect, they also discovered a number of IEDs. At least 1, 2, maybe more of them have been determined to be viable. And at this hour, the police are still conducting a search of the French Quarter, maybe even beyond, to see if there are any other devices that may have been planted. The suspect has been identified as Shamsud Din Jabbar, 42 years old. He's a U.S. citizen who had been living in Texas, but the authorities are also checking potential local ties to New Orleans. And in fact, there's some reporting that the police have been at a location where the suspect may have been staying, or at least that's associated with the suspect, as they continue to understand his potential affiliations. They do see that there was what the FBI is now calling an ISIS flag posted on the truck. So that gave them an early clue as to where inspiration for this attack may have come from.
And Pierre, they're also trying to secure that area now to ensure there aren't more explosive devices around. What's going into that part of this investigation and just trying to secure that scene?
Well, clearly these IEDs that were found in the vehicle and near the scene are the highest priority. They are checking to see if they're viable. We have been told by multiple sources at least one of them is viable. The other bit of information that we got from the FBI statement, which is the most detailed accounting we have so far, is that the ISIS flag was found inside the vehicle. They were very explicit in saying it was found inside the vehicle. Right now, there is an intensive investigation into the suspect, Jabbar's background. He is described as 42 years old. He apparently came in from Texas, rented this vehicle. There were multiple guns involved with this, a long gun, a rifle, we're told, and a handgun. And also, I'm being told that the devices will be potentially a wealth of information as well. Where were the parts bought? The gun, ATF is being brought in to trace the gun to find out when the gun was purchased, what was the chain of ownership of the weapon, also the vehicle, when was it rented. And they're doing a very detailed look at his social media footprint to see if there's any evidence we will hopefully learn in this press conference whether they have any indication of whether the suspect was dealing directly with someone tied to ISIS. We had a recent case out of Oklahoma where they arrested a suspect who was communicating with an ISIS radical in Afghanistan. So nothing's being ruled out at this point other than the fact that the FBI is looking intensely at this person's background. Any residents associated with this individual will be checked. All friends, all associates will be interviewed as well. Again, this is a all hands on deck situation. We're coming with the inauguration upcoming. Law enforcement had already been in a very heightened state of concern. Sources telling me repeatedly, the FBI director and the Attorney General talking repeatedly about this is perhaps the most dangerous threat environment since 9/11, which raises the question, obviously, of why wasn't more done to make sure that that street could not be accessed by a vehicle that could pile into those, very, those citizens who were just trying to enjoy a New Year's holiday.
A press conference there. Officials in New Orleans are expected to update us really at any moment. You can see them getting set up there. And Pierre, you mentioned the big threat environment and the big events. Those include the Sugar Bowl that was supposed to happen tonight. That's now been postponed. New Orleans is also set to host the Super Bowl at the beginning of next month. So a lot of questions are now being raised, not only about this event, but can officials there provide enough security to ensure safety for those events to come? And again, we are just awaiting that presser, expecting to hear from officials in New Orleans. Aaron, while we wait quickly, we're hearing reports of a home in New Orleans blocked off now.
It's about 2 miles from downtown. The ATF has surrounded it. There's no smoke or anything visible, we're told, but there may have been a fire at the location. Neighbors are telling us it may have been used as an Airbnb, so perhaps a location the authorities want to check to see if the suspect may have stayed there prior to committing this attack, to see if any clues were left behind. But as the authorities gather, and you'll hear from the mayor here in a second, we may get some answers.
All right, and it looks like they are preparing. So let's listen in there to New Orleans officials updating us on this deadly attack.
All right, is everybody set? Everybody set? Is there more people coming? No.
Horrific attack. The FBI and our partners are working diligently to investigate and find
Again, just waiting to hear from New Orleans officials here. The mayor giving us an update on this investigation into the attack on Bourbon Street early this morning. So far, we've heard 15 people killed. Of course, we will hear whether that number is confirmed now at this press conference. And also the latest, the Sugar Bowl has now been postponed. Let's listen in and see if we can hear that.
The FBI and our partners are working diligently to investigate and find answers on behalf of the victims, the citizens and residents of Louisiana, and everyone visiting the city. I'm going to provide you some facts and information about what we do know. I know that all of you will have questions, and we will try to provide some answers. But this is an ongoing investigation that's rapidly evolving. So there are some questions I will be unable to answer at this time. And fired upon local law enforcement. Law enforcement returned fire and the subject was pronounced deceased at the scene. 2 law enforcement officers were injured and transported to local hospitals. The subject has been identified as 42-year-old Samsud Dim Jabbar, a U.S.-born citizen from Texas. He was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to be rented, and we are working to confirm how the subject came in possession of this vehicle. An ISIS flag was located on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the subject's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations. Weapons and potential improvised explosive devices located in the subject's vehicle. Other potential IEDs were also located in the French Quarter. As of now, 2 IEDs have been found and rendered safe. The FBI Special Agent bomb technicians, as well as our local law enforcement partners, have been working to determine if any of these devices are viable, and they'll work to render those devices safe. The FBI, we are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism. We're aggressively running down all of the leads to identify the possible subject's associates. We're working to ensure that there is no further threat. We do not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible. We are aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates. That's why we need the public's help. We are asking if anybody has any interactions with Samsud Dim Jabbar in the last 72 hours, that you contact us. The FBI is asking the public's help. We're asking anyone who has information, video, or pictures to provide it to the FBI. We have set up a digital tip line as well as our 1-800 number, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Please provide us with any information that can assist us in this investigation. Once again, thank you for your patience and assistance. For an updated statements or information, please check the FBI's website and our social media accounts. I will now turn over to Mayor Cantrell. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Agent Duncan, for your leadership and the full support of the FBI. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest condolences to the families and loved ones that were impacted by this tragedy on Bourbon Street and in the heart of the city of New Orleans. And I know that the entire New Orleans City Council grieves along right with me, no doubt about that, and our people and our families. My priority will continue to be to ensure that victims that remain on Bourbon Street now will be serviced and removed as soon as possible. But as stated, the FBI is in charge of this investigation and are doing everything necessary to make this happen. I also want to acknowledge hearing from President Biden, all of our federal partners, but most importantly, calling Governor Landry this morning, responded with haste, and we do say thank you. And of course, a demonstration of a unified support is right here in this room. That's how we collectively responded to this tragedy in the city of New Orleans. The mission now is to facilitate, support, and coordinate safety procedures to keep our residents and our visitors safe. I've gone to the hospital along with Chief Kirkpatrick to visit our police officers, and considering their injuries, they're doing well. As I mentioned, this investigation is ongoing, and the FBI remains the lead in the investigation. It is an active crime scene as well. We are committed, no doubt, to uncovering all details surrounding this tragedy. And we're taking every necessary step to put even more safety procedures in place, especially given the nature of the investigation. I'm going to ask people to do not go around our secured area if there is no essential need to do so. It matters, and again, it is an active crime scene. I also want you all to know that the Greater New Orleans Foundation has set up a fund to assist victims, and that information will be provided to you. Thank you, Ganoff. Again, I want to thank this unified team. We're leaning in. We will be relentless, and we will do everything that it takes to render real justice. This team will. I want to also just thank our citizens for your heartfelt prayers. New Orleans is a world-class city, and I can say that I've heard from world leaders all this morning and up until now, in addition to my brother and sister mayors across this country. They're calling, they're responding, and they're standing with the city of New Orleans. And what they always say and want me to reiterate, they understand the resilience of this community. And we're strong in that regard, and I will say second to none. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our governor, and as I mentioned, who has not wavered any.
Again, I want to thank the mayor. Since about 3:45 this morning, when she called me, we have all been working just around the clock to both secure the city and to solve this act. You know, again, I want to reiterate that our prayers go out with all of those who have been affected by this tragedy. I want to thank our law enforcement officers. I want to thank our medical personnel. I want to thank our first responders. And most importantly, I want to thank the two New Orleans police officers who not only laid their life on the line, but were able to eliminate the threat this morning. Let me say, we have made public safety a state priority from day one. And I think that if you look around me today, right now, and you look at the people who are standing around, that is their commitment as well. We intend to be transparent in assessing any defects that may have existed in the system so that we can address it. It's the only way to ensure that any mistakes that were made are corrected. Specifically, we have been trying and working very diligently to address security concerns in preparation for the Super Bowl since October. And it's interesting because, ironically, in preparation for the Super Bowl, I had intended to issue an emergency declaration tomorrow so that we could bring all of our federal, state, and local agencies to bear in preparation for the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras. But because of the events today, I have amended that emergency declaration and issued it today. So again, that declaration will allow our federal, state, and local partners to bring all of the resources necessary to get this city safe. In light of that executive order, I have also ordered the mobilization of a military police company. I've asked General Freelou to mobilize a military police company to assist both New Orleans Police and LSP and the FBI. It is important for our citizens and guests of this state to know that we are doing everything we can to secure their safety in this city. We want to make it clear, the Superdome and the surrounding area is safe. But I've always said that the safety of this entire city is something that is always paramount to me. With that, I would like to turn it over to Jeff with the Super Bowl. Jeff Dunley.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Obviously, we wish we weren't here for this reason today. The Sugar Bowl Committee has a 90-year history of being a good corporate citizen for the city of New Orleans, and that's why this tragedy hurts us as much as anybody right now. So our condolences, thoughts, and prayers go out to the victims and their families as we all work through this. Of course, anytime we have a major event in the city of New Orleans, public safety is paramount, and we have full faith and confidence in the governor and the mayor and all the assets, the federal, state, and local resources that they've applied to this event so that we can ultimately bring those responsible to justice and carry on with the major events that we have in front of us. Speaking of which, we were scheduled this evening to have a CFP quarterfinal played in the Superdome at 7:45. We have been in consultation with ESPN, with the College Football Playoff, with the Southeastern Conference, with the University of Georgia, with Notre Dame, all parties, and all agree that it's in the best interest of everybody in public safety that we postpone the game for 24 hours. Work is fast about to set up a safe and efficient and fun environment for tomorrow night. There'll be more details on that in the coming hours, but for now, that's the plan, that we're going to move forward and play the game. And again, we reiterate our thanks to everyone up here for the important work they're doing. We live in the fun and games world with what we do, but we certainly recognize the importance of this, and we're going to support it 100%. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to bring up Senator Kennedy.
I wish I understood better why bad things happen to good people. If I make it to heaven, I'm going to ask. For those people who don't believe in objective evil, all you have to do is look at what happened in our city early this morning. I am, if this doesn't trigger the gag reflex of every American, every fair-minded American, I I'll be very surprised. I'm here because these are my people. I'm here because these are my people's friends. I'm here because there are a lot of Louisianians that are scared tonight. I don't want them to be. There's a lot of information going around. Some of it is actually true. Some of it isn't. The federal government is now in charge of this investigation. By that, I mean the White House, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Justice. I have not talked to the FBI. Maybe they've talked to my staff. I don't know. I did talk to the Secretary of Homeland Security a little while ago. And I told him that with all the respect I could muster, that we expect to put the full force and resources of the federal government behind this investigation. Our state troopers, our local police departments, our sheriffs, we've got many sheriffs here today, have been terrific so far. The federal government is cooperating with them. I hope that will continue. Here's what I want to ask from the federal government. Catch these people. Catch these people. And then tell the American people the truth. Now, I don't want you to tell us yet anything that's going to interfere with your investigation. And there are things that I've been told that I think are true that I'm not sharing with you today because it could interfere with their investigation. But after we get to the bottom of this, they need to tell the American people the truth, and the people of New Orleans the truth, and the people of America the truth. I think the mayor and the governor are very wise to postpone this ball game for 24 hours. There's just too much stuff we don't know, and it's just not worth it. But I guess my final point is, I will promise you this. I will, when it is appropriate and this investigation is complete, you will find out what happened and who was responsible. Or I will raise fresh hell. And I will chase those in the federal government who are responsible for telling us what happened, like they stole Christmas.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Congressman Carter, I think.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Thank you to all of our law enforcement agents for doing a yeoman's job, for stepping up at a time when we needed you most, for employing the resources of all of our partners. This is all hands on deck, from the White House all the way down. I've been in communication with the White House since early this morning, Secretary Mayorkas, leaders in all of our federal, local, and state agencies. The president has made it very clear that he intends to bring every resource to bear to not only tell the truth, but to provide the resources to bring these cowards to justice. I want to personally thank the men and women in uniform who put their lives on the line to protect our citizens and our visitors. To our this community, we work together. We don't point fingers, we don't blame. We go after the bad guys. Let it be clear that the full faith and credit of the United States and every agency therein is on the ground, working. And for those who may have played a role in this horrific act of cowardice, we will find you. We will bring you to justice. New Orleans is a place that heralds its ability to protect its citizens, that heralds its ability to manage major events, Super Bowls, Sugar Bowls, Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, Essence Festival, you name it, no one does it better than law enforcement in New Orleans and in the surrounding area. Kudos to those two officers who've been wounded. Our hearts go out to those who lost loved ones. Our hearts go out to those who are wounded and on the mend in the hospital. Citizens, Now is the time to stay calm, to be vigilant. This is not a time to come out to sightsee. Listen to your federal, local, state officials. Be vigilant. If you saw something, say something. If you know something, tell someone. There are tip lines, there's information available. Please, all hands on deck. Rest assured that the decision that was made to postpone the game was not done lightly. It was done with one single thing in mind: public safety. Making sure that the citizens and visitors of this great city, not only for this event, but for every event you come to in Louisiana, not only for this event, but for every event you come to in Louisiana, that you will be safe, and we will use every resource possible. As the governor has said, as the mayor has said, and every law enforcement agent here has said, our energy, our commitment will be to make sure that you are safe now and for every event in the future. God bless you, and let's stay strong.
Thank you, Congressman.
Attorney General.
I first want to extend my sincerest condolences to the families of the victims. Parents got a phone call last night, early this morning, that no parent ever wants to receive. And as a parent of children who come to New Orleans and spend time here, I know that that is just something that, you know, we hold our breath sometimes till they're home safe, and some people did not come home safe. And we also have some people who are fighting for their lives right now in the hospital. So I'd ask everyone to pray for them. They need our support and they need our prayers. This was a heinous act, a heinous, cowardly act, and we will find them and we will bring them to justice. My office will be providing both investigative and prosecutorial support to the city of New Orleans, to the district attorney, Jason Williams in New Orleans, as I have done for months. We will continue to do that. We will provide the governor with whatever support that he needs, and the governor's office of Homeland Security, whatever support that they need.
Still a lot of information out here. There's still bombs that they haven't found. There's still these that they're trying to locate. So be safe. Stay away from the area. Was this a terrorist attack on FBA? That's the question that I leave you with, boys and girls. But I'm not going to hold you. I'm just going to mold you, fold you, and scold you about being off code. Going to leave you with 4 words, as we always do around this time. Subscribe for the vibe, like for the spike. Comment your comment and share if you care, if you dare, about getting Black empowerment everywhere. We're on all of the platforms: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook. Come and take a look. You might get hooked. But don't get shook by the imposter Keep It P podcasts that are out there. Love, peace, blessings, and Maloha. I gotta go high for sure. High. You already know how. Big brother, light bright, supreme, almighty, signing off.